Welcome to Ray's Quest Body and Mind. Tonight we're into the second lesson of symbols, the where, the why, and the how. The where is everywhere, and the why is to get you free of the controllers. And the how, well, that's taught by Dr. Joe in the placebo and the lesson on intent. Come join us. This will be good.
Hello, my name is Ray Dwyer, and this is Ray's Quest Body and Mind. Welcome for tonight's lesson. It's going to be symbols, the where, the what, and the how. And we're going to bring in a little bit of history, and we're going to bring in into some present day stuff, and we're going to talk about how you can use symbols to create your life. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a PowerPoint presentation pretty much. We're going to share the screen and just go through some really cool pictures. Modern symbols. All right. Last time we talked about how symbols throughout history have always played a part in modern society. Uh, we talked about how symbols are everywhere in the Western religion. You walk into an old church, a church 1500 years ago in the founding times of the Christian era, and there are symbols everywhere. Now, about us, you can still see Masonic tradition influence and buildings. You can see the Greek Roman symbols. You can see the zodiac. People think the zodiac is something hidden. No, it's really hidden in plain sight. You'll see religious and ancient symbols, the sun and the rooster. Did you know the rooster is a sun symbol? Symbols are everywhere. The tree of life, flags, stars, logos, homemade symbols, the placebo, intention, ritual. That's kind of the syllabus for tonight. Here's an interesting symbol. Washington, D.C., the George Washington Masonic National Memorial in Alexandria. If you are under the impression that the Freemasons are some kind of dark society, I wish you would study up a little bit and change your opinion. The Freemasons were instrumental in building the first free republic in Western history. The first, and that's the United States. And for a long time, the Freemasons led this country righteously, creating incredible architecture and and trying to build a good nation. The Masonic influence in Washington, D.C. There's Masonic symbols. Did you know the city is laid out to include numerous Masonic symbols such as the square, the compass, representing virtue and morality, and the all-seeing eye? You know, you look at the $1 bill, that all-seeing eye is an important Masonic symbol. Learning about Masonic symbols is, if as you new to Dispenza's work or other things, the Freemason symbols are really a fascinating study. The obelisk, that's a symbol that goes back to ancient Egypt and the pyramid builders. The Washington Monument, which has its origin in ancient Egypt, are associated with enlightenment and rebirth. I know the religious tradition in the United States or in the Western Europe doesn't believe in rebirth. And in the middle of our capital, the Washington Monument is an Egyptian symbol, symbolizes enlightenment and rebirth. Did you know that's what that's about? Statues and sculptures. Various statues and sculptures throughout Washington, D.C. depict figures of history, mythology, and carrying symbolic significance. We have symbols all about us. Numerical symbolism. Numerical symbolism is prevalent in specific measurements, placements, holding. Numerical symbolism is sometimes hidden because they don't put a big numeral posted here like 14, 15, 57, 16, whatever. No, but the measurements are very precise, very deliberate. Like this, the measurements of the base of the pyramids in Egypt. Wow, there's some fascinating studies. I'm not going to go into the numerical studies or not. The Hebrew uh, scriptures has a book called Book of Numbers. Fascinating. Once you step out of the religion and just study what that book is saying, it's a study of symbolic numerical relationship. Fascinating work. Geometric designs. The city's layout incorporates geometric patterns such as circles, triangles. Why? Why are they what they are? Because the circle, the square, have symbol significance. The triangle, whether it's triangle up or triangle down, has symbolic significance. They're trying to hold a teaching in plain sight. The nature symbols, stars, animals, the eagle, renewal, regrowth, the continuation of life and death. All these things are important symbols all over our capital. Our capital is formed and founded and structured and planned by a society of men who wanted to communicate their thoughts and their beliefs symbolically. And they're out there in plain sight. And in the biggest part, most of the people of the United States are ignorant to the genius of our founding fathers. If you want just some interesting, okay, so it doesn't mean anything in your daily life, but I find it fascinating, the things that I've learned about the Masonic symbols throughout Washington, D.C. We'll go into a few of them. The perfect square of the capital city. Washington, D.C. was planned very specifically. It was plotted out in a perfect square. The calculations for the perfect square George Washington sought for the capital city was performed by a surveyor major, Ellicott, and free black mathematician Benjamin Banneker, placing the 40 markers at 1 mile intervals, took the team nearly 2 years. Did you get this? Capital Washington, D.C. was surveyed by a free black. That's the heart of our founding capital, was that it was surveyed and built and shared in the planning, not by just rich British people, but by people, free people in this promised land. Part of the symbolism of the Masons was this beautiful temple, and in the temple is this beautiful picture. It has 33 beams of light. That number 33, remember the numerology, the number significance we mentioned earlier. One of the Masons' ultimate numbers is 33. Well, there's something interesting about the 33. Some of you are a medical background, and if I understand right, there's 33 bones in the human spinal column. And part of the teaching is raising your energy up your spinal column. Cerebral spinal fluid. I can never say it right. Even if I could read the word, I can't get it out of my mouth. As you raise your energy up your spinal column and raise that spinal fluid up, each level is an energy. Each level brings it up. Each level of those 33 beams of light are talking about raising the inner body, inner self energy consciousness energy up the 33 levels of the spinal column. It's part of their symbology. Really cool stuff. In the midst of our Western heritage are some interesting statues. Themis, the goddess of freedom and justice. We have Greek gods as statues in our capitals. Why is that? I think understanding these symbols are important. So my first statement when I started this is, where are symbols? And my point is, they're all over the place. The question is, why? What is it that people will spend the fortune to produce these masterful pieces of art and hide their lesson in plain sight? I think it's kind of interesting. Mercury. Remember, Mercury is a zodiac sign. It's a star sign. And it's on our public buildings, federal buildings. Interesting. Mercury rules thought, writing, commerce, travelers, and thieves. Mercury is told to have stolen the heart of one of the divine messengers. He is the guardian of the mysteries, flying heavenward. His cloak streams behind him. Why would our federal government have a messenger like Mercury on its building? What message is it trying to communicate? I find that interesting. Why is symbology so important to the founding fathers and to the leaders, modern leaders of today, that symbols like this are put on our federal buildings? Speaking of the zodiac, the Federal Triangle is a central hub of the national bureaucracy and home to the National Archives treasure house of the American soul. The National Archives building and the zodiac together. There is more to the United States than the average education teaches. There is so much going on in modern mainline media, really speaking bad about the free republic of the United States. And they're tearing it apart. They're miseducating people continuously, so that people get out of high school and college with no understanding of the spirit that the United States was formed under. It's important enough that the National Archives references the zodiac in its architecture. Here's an interesting picture. If you were with us last week, do you remember the Tree of Life? There's 10 Sephiros from the Hebrew lessons of the Kabbalah. And they had a pathway going up on one side, they had a path on the other side, then they had the column in the middle. They had Tepereth is the heart center, and the high center is Kether. Very classical Greek-Roman architecture, wouldn't you say? The black-white floor pattern, right out of the lessons of the Masonic teachings of to walk carefully between the darkness and the light. The National Archive, the National Academy of Science, is next door, a testament to the spirit of scientific inquiry and classical elegance. This academy at the western end of the walking tour nicely complements the Library of Congress. We find again images of celestial harmony that resonates throughout the American capital. Now, what's interesting in this classical architecture is this lamp right here in the middle. What's this disco-looking lamp doing in the middle of the entranceway The National Academy of Science. There it is. What is the message that they're trying to say here? What is with this disco lamp? Well, I'm going to show you how important the zodiac is to the National Academy of Science. George Washington isn't just a man that was our first president. This is his portrait, standing face slightly right, in his Masonic attire, holding a scroll and a troll, his Masonic work symbols, head and shoulder portraits of Lafayette. You remember Lafayette, he was that French general that was instrumental in aiding the United States in fighting its Revolutionary War. And of all people, Andrew Jackson, he was the person who went down to New Orleans and fought the British in 1812. And this is like biblical scenes around the sides. Highly symbolic. Washington is a Freemason. That apron is the symbol of mastery in the in the Masonic tradition. He was the Grand Master, there's another term for it, of the Masons at that time. This is that ceiling lamp in the academy. If you got right underneath it and looked up, this is what you'd see. There's 24 petals in this rose. I believe that's what this is called. And there's a couple rings of stars, 12 in each ring, for 24 stars. And here's the zodiac in the proper order, in the proper symbolism. The two lamps hanging from the ceiling at either end of the hall are the work of Sidney Rowe, chief associate designer for the glass, 1937. The beautiful blue dome of the star-filled night sky is encircled by the zodiacal band cut in glass. The 12 figures are shown above in their natural sequence. This is the National Academy. What are they trying to tell us? They're trying to tell us that the symbols of ancient times, the messages that they give, are still relevant in everyday life. They really are. Western religion did teach me to really turn my back on this. But as I got older and I learned about my government, my Washington, D.C., how could I turn my back on the United States government? And this is part of the lesson that they're saying who they are. I think this is worth thinking about. The 12 figures are shown above in their natural sequence. There it is right there. Isn't that interesting? Okay. The bronze doors, 4 bronze doors on the inside entranceway to the National Academy of Science, are each displaying 3 signs of the zodiac shown here. The National Academy of Science is showing the zodiac not only in its overhead lamp, but in its bronze gateway. What message is that teaching? I learned this and it's like, what? Of all, because science says, oh, it's this and this and this. But when you go to the federal level at the founding fathers, their National Academy of Sciences says Is it really just this Darwinian cause and effect? Or is there something else at play in creation and in our life? I think they're saying that there's more to life than the Big Bang to me, because the zodiac is a pretty interesting lesson when you get to the great look of the creation. What about planetary things? Did I skip a step? Here's what I wanted to show you. First, sun symbolism. As we bring through symbolisms of what is present today, sun symbolism, the true essence of the sun symbolism is its representation of primordial intellect, the manifestation of the universal cosmic consciousness. It transcends space and time and energy. Human process and harmonizing with its forces called atonement at one moment, illumination and enlightenment, atonement of a select group of their own initiate members, and the awareness of control. Sun is also a symbol of immortality and reincarnation. Just as the sun rises and sets each day, some people believe that you may die and then rise again. Now, this is interesting because if the sun's symbolism is one of cycles of sun of rising and falling and rising and falling and reincarnation, then the Catholic Church is kind of confused, because the Catholic Church says live once and die. And yet the Catholic Church has clear sun worship symbolism. Can't get around it. There it is.
Can I just share about the number 24? I
Okay.
studied Jin Shin Jitsu, which is a healing modality. It's rooted in numerology, the cosmos.
Oh, I'd love to hear your explanation of the number
Uh,
24.
well, 24, every part of the body, we work with these, what we call safety energy locks, these certain points on the body. And 24 represents, it's known as the peacemaker. 24 is located on the body. It's known as understanding, divine understanding, and also the peacemaker,
Well, how that is so appropriate.
right? And 12 and this is all rooted in the first 5 books of the Bible, of the Torah. And 12 represents not our will, but God's will.
That is so appropriate.
hmm And also when you reduce, 24 equals 6, and 6 means balance.
Yes, there it is.
Okay.
I am going to, some of this last few minutes of conversation when I edit will take out, but I am keeping that part. That's beautiful. Thank you. What was your name again? I missed it. Who just told me that?
Yes, it's Lynn.
Hello, Lynn. I'm going
Yeah,
to write your
thank you,
name down.
Ray.
That was what a jewel. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Okay. Um, so we just talked about the sun and how it means resurrection. I mean, the cycle of life, die and then rise again. And yet, the, the Roman Church, which very much says live once and you're gone. And yet, here's the Roman Church raising a clear sun symbol. Very interesting to me. Another interesting thing that I come across when I was doing the sun symbol is the rooster. I don't remember coming across the rooster as being a sun symbol, but it kind of makes sense. In Christian tradition, the early Christian church, the rooster is a symbol of the Christ, like the eagle and the lamb, particularly emphasizing the solar symbolism, light, and resurrection. As Christ the rooster announces the light that follows. That was interesting to me. And on this church steeple is a rooster, as a symbol of the rising sun. The new rising sun. I think that is really cool. That is the broad history that I was after. I had a purpose in going through that little discussion. And part of that purpose was to bring up to date that symbols that are as ancient, I mean, we're talking about thousands of years. The zodiac goes back to the founding of the Hebrew language, the Hebrew letters. And we talked last week about through the Hebrew letters, you have the tree of life. On the tree of life is the flower of life. And that flower of life has everything. All kind of crazy symbols on it. Well, I said crazy. I didn't mean to sound derogatory. Here is the tree of life. On this simple 10 Sephiros, you have the 22 Hebrew letters. You have the chakra symbols, the astrology, the tarot, planetary symbols. Greek and Roman gods are embedded on this. There is the energy centers of the body. There's the seven candelabra, the menorah of the Hebrew faith. It is all part of this. Here is the Metatron and the flower of life. The flower of life is a fascinating thing. Did you know that this symbol down in the bottom, the flower of life, has been found on the pyramids in Mexico? It has been found on the Egyptian temples, ancient buildings and temples. It has been found on Angkor Wat in the area of Cambodia. This symbol is a global symbol. There was a culture on this planet that was united around the globe. It was a temple building, megalith building society, and they had a common understanding, and it was symbolized in this flower of life. In this flower of life is the tree of life, and in that are all our modern beliefs. The Metatron is embedded in the Kether. It says, wait a minute. Well, part of what you learn as you study the tree of life is that every energy center is like a piece of a fractal teaching, and everything is repeated as you go focus and focus. Everything is the same and smaller. It's a fractal teaching. Fascinating. So each intersection is a full tree of life symbol, and that Metatron is a symbol of everything being built in the Kether as a source. This level represents the first Sephiroth, and it's called Kether. It's where existence is possible through the emanation of universal light. This makes Metatron one of the most powerful beings in existence. Fascinating. As you get into the symbols that are embedded in the Kabbalah, be careful. There is a kind of a religious side of this, which is just another control factor. But if you can find a clean teaching of this without the religion, it's a pretty interesting study. I hope some of you find this kind of thing fascinating. Here is the tree of life shown on the intersections of the flower of life. See how that replicates? And if you were to treat this as a fractal and zoom in Each intersection would have a full flower of life with a fractal of retrieval life deeper and deeper. Where I'm going with this is once again talking about the symbols are everywhere, and they go back not hundreds of years, thousands of years. I have an interesting question. How can a symbol thousands of years old still be pertinent today in our so-called modern society? When you solve that question for yourself, you got to find it in yourself. You have really gotten free of some of the controls of our society. Very, very important lesson. Because life is a fractal. Fractal? The next point I want to talk to is this little thing here. We're going to go into the star, five-pointed star. And I found this perfect statement and picture to discuss. The pentagram is not an evil symbol. It actually represents man in higher consciousness and lower consciousness. When the pentagram is upright, as on the left, it represents man in full awareness of his divine nature, enlightened. When the pentagram is inverted, as in the far right, man is trapped in matter with only a physical presentation and understanding of himself. This is what the pentagram is about. It is not some kind of evil symbol. It never has been an evil symbol until some people in a Western religion decided to use it as a control to separate those who had free thinking, and they wanted to control them. That's all it means. Have you ever seen somebody with a picture of a hand with the hand up, or a picture of the hand down? The hand is a symbol of the five-pointed star with the center finger up. This means enlightenment. If the hand is down, this is a sad sign. It means man has only understanding of himself. This has nothing to do with some evil force. It has to do with understanding. Do you understand? It's really important. It's part of the history of symbols. And the point that I wanted to make about the star is my next picture coming up. The pentagram has magical associations, and many people who practice pagan faiths wear them. Christians once commonly used the pentagram to represent the 5 wounds of Jesus, and it also has association with Freemasonry. So at one time, the symbol of the star was a good thing, and then somewhere along the way, the Christian church decided to make it something evil and has banned any association with the 5-pointed star. The pentagram has long been associated with the planet Venus and the worship of the goddess Venus and her equivalent. Very interesting. I could talk a little bit about the symbology of Venus and how it plays back to the tarot and how it plays back to the Hebrew letters and the numbers and how it plays back all the way to ancient Kabbalah, to the earliest teachings of the planets and the zodiac and astrology. It's not woo-woo, it's real. And there's a reason why it's still prevalent today. It is also associated with the Roman Lucifer. Is that a bad thing? Who was Venus as the morning star? Venus has a male and female characterization. Venus was the beloved high priestess, the beloved rising virgin. And Venus was the setting star, Lucifer, the bringer of light and knowledge. But how evil was the pentagram? These are flags of nations, all with a pentagram on them. Most of them Let's see if I can zoom in. Oops. I guess I can't without losing the picture. Most of them, as this one in the middle here, has the point up. But as I looked across this, occasionally there's a few with the point kind of cockeyed or kind of off center, and there's a couple with the point down. I'm not worried about what countries that they are or whatever. I'm just saying most of them have the point up. The United States star and stripes, the stars are up. Everything that has a British heritage, the star points up. There are some countries that don't have the British English heritage, and that star points sideways or down. I think that's interesting. So what's the significance of stars? Well, once again, I'm trying to get you to see that symbols are everywhere in our culture. Don't be afraid to use a symbol. Don't be afraid to associate with a symbol. It is part of how we communicate our culture. How else do we communicate our culture? Logos, corporate logos and symbols. Some of these are so recognizable. Now, who wouldn't know by looking at this little black figure here what this one represents, right? How about this silver one here? I bet you didn't have to look twice to know what this one is. How about this circle with the red, white, and blue? Golden arches? Really? The target? This check mark? The blue bird over here? This little green Venus symbol? This seashell symbol? Okay, who's this old man down here? Can you see that? These symbols? This bunny rabbit? Really? These are all corporate logos and symbols. Look at these symbols and corporate logos. These are spelled out as words with figures. Symbols are everywhere about your life. And yet, I grew up in a religious culture that made me think symbols were some kind of taboo. Stay away from symbols. Why? Well, because creating symbols controls the subconscious mind. What is the power of a symbol? The power of the symbol can get into your analytical mind and by repetition drive a suggestion into your subconscious mind without you even knowing it and create an attachment to a concept that you don't even know you're being suggested into. It is a control device that they have into your subconscious mind, and we're taught not to resist it. So how do we resist a society that floods us like this? There is a way. The primary way is to learn about it, and that's what we're talking about tonight, is to learn that we are being flooded by symbols. Look at it. Here's corporate logos with a 5-pointed star. Do you recognize any of these? I'm not going to name them, but look at that. They're all over the place. They're everywhere in our culture. And yet, here's a 3-pointed star. And yet, I was taught that the 5-pointed star was the devil. Yeah, it was. And yet, here it is everywhere in our sight. What do they know that we were not allowed to know? Really? This is how you overcome it. First of all, you learn what a symbol is. You learn that you are being programmed by them. And you learn to make your own symbols for your own life. Did you know you can make your own symbols? And that is really the heart of tonight. We're taught by Dr. Joe to have intentions. We're taught by Dr. Joe about the placebo effect. And we're giving this information, and what I'm helping you with now is to take the foundation of Dr. Joe's teaching of the placebo and the symbol of the intention and create a symbol that empowers your life so you can consciously create your life. And I'll tell you that, and we'll go through it, and I'll help you with the advantage of it. You're going to like this. As you go through symbols, symbols have a geometric shape to them. I have a friend who likes birds. I myself have a symbol of a candle in my mind. Some of you have gone through my discussion. You hear me often talk about going into a dark room with a candle lit on a bench. Well, that's not a mistake. This candle lit is kind of my symbol in my meditation. That is my symbol that I use, just like these. Do you have a symbol that you like? If you don't, I suggest you make one. And in looking at this little image here, it can be almost anything. It can be a house. It can be a flower blooming. It can be linked hands. It can be a flight. It can be a heart figure. The hands down covering a heart. Applauding hands. It could be a symbol of a fireplace, stone fireplace with orange light glowing, and you're sitting on a cushion in front of it, and you have the symbol of the light and warmth of the flame heating you and healing you. What is your symbol? What is the structure about that symbol? Geometry is important because shape is important. Structure, how is it made? Make even the structure of your symbol important. The rhythm of your presentation, as you learned in You Are the Placebo, healing isn't take this wood pill one time and you're miraculously healed. No. The power of the placebo pill is the repetitious taking of the pill. Remember that? He says, take this pill and read the instructions every day before you take it. And that is to give you the suggestion of that pill every single time. Okay, so anyway, the purpose of tonight, before I got lost in this recording, is to help you build your own ritual. Many of you have read the book You Are the Placebo and Supernatural. And in Supernatural, he talks about creating your own symbol. Let's first talk about the outline of becoming a placebo. This is the purpose of tonight, is the next two slides. For the placebo effect and the energy in a ritual. First you have a conditioning. And the example that Dr. Joe gives in his book, Placebo, is a doctor comes in. He comes in with his white coat. He's distinguished and he talks Latin, right? And he presents you with a pill. And he teaches you what to expect in the pill. So the second point is expectation. Expectation comes into play when we anticipate an outcome. Okay? We have a meaning to the outcome, and we have an emotional impact to it. And here is the one that I got right the most. Some of you have heard my story, how I've got a major healing in the first year of work. And I didn't know all this stuff, but I had this number 4. The more we accept and embrace the new outcome we've selected, and the intensity of our emotion is great enough, our brains and our bodies won't know the difference between imagining that we've changed our state of being to being the actual event that caused the change to a new state of being. To the brain and body, they're the same. When you want it Not just want it like is in coveting, but when you can wear that new event with enough intensity, Dr. Joe says your new energy has to be greater than the summation of all the energy that you're trying to overcome. I was a very angry, stressed out guy. So when I started building an emotion, I knew I had to crank up all the passion I knew. I wanted to be healed. I wanted it. This is the one I got right. Over here is an interesting lesson. Dr. Joe gives this lesson about how to create a symbol of your intent. I'm going to combine this with the placebo, and you'll understand what we're doing. First, you create a symbol. I do this. If you're wondering, I do this. I've got a symbol on my board now. I call it my yes symbol. You ever go through life and it just seems like life tells you no? You're like, what do you mean no? You know, and you try to do something and it's like you got a closed door. You ever get one of those times? I kind of went through it and I've got a friend going through it. And so on my little whiteboard, I wrote the word yes, and I made it like a little sign that you put in your front yard. A little post board with and then I drew. So instead of the J, I put the word yes in the middle of it, and then I put the squiggly lines representing the body energy and the mind energy, and I radiated it out just like this. But mine is a little square symbol where the yes is, and I put it like in a little wooden post, and I drew a little grass symbol, like as if a post in a yard, and then I put the squiggly lines and all this other stuff on it. And I wrote down stuff like this. Well, I've erased all this stuff now because I've got it pretty well memorized, but the way I do it actually is I do this little symbol, and because I'm kind of a private person, I don't want to write all this out for people to see it on my public open board. I draw out little flower petals, you know, like petals of a flower, and this is the center of my flower. And I put a letter representing my intention or representing my emotion. And so mine kind of grows out like a sunflower. That's how I do it. Remember up here we talked about creating your own symbols? I'm creating my own sunflower as a symbol. And so I do this, and I've got my word yes here in the middle, and I've got it built like a little sign, my squiggly lines rating it, and then I put out little pebbles. When I first started, I did this with the letter M because I had a certain word, a magical word that put here, and I didn't know what that word mean emotionally. So over time, I started adding petals to it. And I didn't get my symbol, my intention fully developed. There it is. No, it comes with, oh, that would be a good idea. Remember, there's a scripture that says, He gives you the desire of your heart. When you go in, don't just say, I want this. Well, okay, I'm not saying don't. What I'm saying for me, I didn't know what I wanted. You with me? I was so new to this work, so coming off a lot of medical, where do I go with my life now? So I drew in an inspiration, and I put the letter for that inspiration right here in the middle. And I didn't know what the elevated emotions was like. I hadn't learned what love was yet. I hadn't learned how to do intentions. But so as I learned, I put a petal, like petals on a rose, on a sunflower. And I put another letter here, and another letter here. And I put a letter. So by the time I was done, I had this funny looking sunflower. And so I put a stem on it and kind of leaves. And I had that on my whiteboard for months. And that became my symbol. for a long time was a sunflower. Later, my symbol, once this got in me, and I mean in me, where I could close my eyes and see it, my desire evolved into another symbol. And I started drawing a little stubby candle. I was doodling. I'd sit there and doodle, I'd be out in the living room or something having a cup of coffee, and I'd doodle, and I'd find myself drawing of a little candle on a little saucer, kind of a stubby candle with melted and a little flame. And it was a symbol that was growing in me. And my symbol then became a little candle on a little saucer type dish. And that's the symbol that you hear me talk about sometimes when I talk about going into your awareness. I go into a dark space and I have a candle on a little table. That was a symbol that was used to teach me to meditate in awareness versus the analytical mind. See how that worked for me? What I put over here is a really interesting website that gives a really good lesson on this. That's why this is there. So if you want to write that down and get another lesson on this, it was good enough that I thought I'd reference her. I don't know her from anything. I don't know anything about her. I'm not promoting her. I'm just saying I found her website, and that's a good little lesson for this. Okay? KatieBSmith.com. And she has a lesson on this little thing, this little stage right here on clear intention. So, we know that symbols are everywhere. We know that they communicate into the subconscious mind. And we know that corporations and everybody that control in our society uses them. And for me, I know I was taught symbols are bad, particularly the star, the pentagram. Bad. If you're still subject to that, work on it. If you're still subject to the lessons that the Masonic Freemasons are some kind of dark force in this continental United States, study it. You'll find that they were the first freedom fighters of the Western world. When everybody else demanded kings, the Masons formed a republic here in the United States. This is not meant to be a democrat nation. It's a republic. It's a government supposedly under law. We have lost our way, but that's the design and purpose of the United States. With those things in mind, the next thing that I hoped to have accomplished tonight is to teach you how to give power to this. Now that you've done this and you meditate on it and you get it, it's very human for this to fade in energy in about a week. You get familiar with it and okay, it's the J, put the J, I'll look at the circle, okay, I got it and go away. You with me? Every religion, every esoteric school on the planet knows the secret of the placebo and tying it to a symbol. This is the lesson that I hope to achieve tonight. Let's say you make this symbol and you memorize it and you see your emotional level and you see the intention and you feel that you're getting bored with it. Don't lose this. Create a ritual around it. The power of the ritual is what keeps this in power. When I was a child in my religious tradition, we used to go in our church and light candles. Before the candle, there'd be behind the candles there'd be a statue, and we'd remember because we had to rehearse the lesson of that statue, and we would go through the act of choosing a red candle or a white candle. We would follow through with the act of lighting the candle. We'd put $1 in the tray and would say a blessing to ourselves and we'd go away. What I just described is the placebo effect. We are conditioned to the ritual that has value. I have expectation because of the ritual that I just said to myself, that lighting this candle versus lighting this candle will give me a special expectation. I know there's a meaning in the illumination of a light in lighting that candle. I am giving energy to my dream, to my prayer. And in that energy, I give it emotion. That is a ritual that I was trained in as a child. As I got older and I started studying the Kabbalah and astrology and tarot and other things, I got a ritual of blessing of the angels. I would stand here in my office and I would face the 4 directions, face east and bless an angel, face south and bless an angel, face west and bless an angel, and face north and bless an angel. By the way, I'm deliberately not naming them or saying anything about it. I could talk about them, but I don't want to add that to tonight's discussion. My point is that I used rituals until they became such a part of me that in me I can sit in this chair and perform that ritual in my mind. Remember this bottom line here on this page? To the brain and body, they are the same. I have so embedded these rituals in my mind that I emotionally do them sitting in this chair. On days when I don't get this connection, I still stand here and do my blessings. Sometimes I have a little candle that I light in front of me. I'm just a guy. Sometimes I can't get it off the ground. You know what I mean? You sit down and you're all analytical and it's just like, come on, guy, and it won't break free, right? I have rituals I do to break free of this captivity I've somehow found myself in. I do rituals. I do this placebo effect for my symbol that I have in my mind. Let's talk about the power of a walking meditation. In the walking meditation, Dr. Joe says, find your intent for this meditation. Here it is. You can call it up from a past intent, or you can just decide on it for that day. I intend for it to be really good at work today or something like that, and you call it up. Or you can call up your symbolic intention that you've made, and then what do? You start your walking meditation, your conditioning, your expectation, your meaning, your emotion. You start your ritual of your holy walk in your walking meditation. And that ritual adds emotion through the roof for this clear intention. That is what I'm after tonight. That is the lesson I want you to see. Symbols are not woo-woo. They're not otherworldly. They're not divine strictly to religious or control companies. Symbols are a human experience. And Dr. Joe has taught the keys to empowering symbols in your life. Amazing. I can't tell you how excited I got when I got this. The 2 books, Breaking the Habit and You Are the Placebo, give you the power to change your life if you can decode these simple things. In Supernatural, there's a lesson on this. It's figure 3-6, chapter 3. And he goes into the discussion of how his son was looking for work. I used this all passionately for a while until I got it in me. And when I learned that I can ritualize my meditation and empower my clear intention, I have fun with it. Now, just like that thinks that the body and the mind, when they're truly union, doesn't know the difference. That's the bottom line of the lesson I was after tonight. Is anybody still with me?
Yes, of course.
Okay, that ends the point that I wanted to make, and I feel passionate about this. If you can get what I'm saying tonight and you apply it, it will change you. There's a numerous teachings on getting more about your intention, and they're all basically correct. I have simplified it down because of my learnings of Dr. Joe. This is a human expression. It just is. It has to be human because this is done by every culture on the planet, from high religion to the community witch doctors, the natives. Everybody does this. Why? How can that be? Well, because it's a human experience. So learn to do it. Learn to create your life. This is how it's done. The end.